Hey guys, last time we started talking about just some real basics of parenting, and the goal here is just to help you feel a little bit more equipped um, as a parent, as a new parent, that kind of stuff. I mentioned in the last video that I currently have 5 kids, and I helped raise 2 others before. Long story, but okay, so let's pick up where we left off last part, the first part. I don't know, whatever you want to say. One thing that's important to remember with kids is that they establish their identity, boys and girls establish their identity very differently. Now, there's a lot of people who think that there really isn't a big difference in boys and girls, and that's just so much not based on science. There's just a lot of stuff there, and really, I could spend a lot of time talking about that. But what I want to say instead of proving that point is a much simpler point. As a father, you are establishing the boy's sense of identity. He will naturally just look to his father. I don't know how to explain this. It's just something that a boy does. I don't know. If you mistreat him, it will change who he develops as a man. It's just crazy. If you go to, for instance, prisons and you see how many of those people either didn't have a father or didn't have a loving and interactive father. When you take, for instance, um, don't I don't want to open a whatever they call it, open a big issue here, but when you talk to homosexual men, a lot of times there will be a very much so problem with a father figure, oftentimes with abuse and those kinds of things. It's just I can't really explain it. There's a lot of research going into this kind of stuff, so I really don't want to waste your time on that kind of stuff. You can read that stuff on your own. But the idea here is that as a father, you are establishing the boy's sense of identity. It's important that you treat women with respect, that you don't lord it over other people like you're the boss of everything, that you don't act like you don't have time for them. Act like it's okay to lose your temper and fly off the handle all the time and beat people. I mean, that's very important because I don't know how or why, but the boy's just going to take you as a standard of manhood. And it's very important how you interact with them. How will they know when they're a man? How will they know when they have come of age? How will they know well, when when you teach them, when you accept them as a man. Boys will go their entire life trying to find what was rejected from their father. It's uncanny, I guess, is what is the word. It's just really amazing. I know a lot of men who, as a boy, their father, either abused them or left them or whatever, and they carry those problems throughout the rest of life, even into adulthood. It affects their relationships. It affects everything. Now, obviously, the mom does matter to the boy, but the mom doesn't establish a sense of identity. There's a lot of reasons why it's not a good idea to sleep around, and this is one of those reasons. Kids don't ask for a divided home. They didn't, just because you have emotional issues or you have relationship issues or whatever. That's not the kid's fault. They didn't ask for that. And a lot of times, what happens is in our insecurity, in our search for love, we get into relationship after relationship, and we let people move in with us. We sleep with just anybody. We have real no standards, that kind of stuff. And then we bring kids into the world, and either we abort them, or we bring and drag them through these situations. Neither of those options sound very good to me. Um, and there's just a better way to do things a lot of times, but sometimes what we do is, because I'm an adult, because I'm my own person, I can do a bunch of stupid things and screw up a bunch of people's lives and it doesn't matter. And that's just not true. It's important as a father that you don't sleep around. You don't flirt with every single woman. You stay faithful to your wife. If you love a woman, marry her. Give her that commitment. Um, it just will completely change everything. And your child not only will look to you for how to treat women, but also he'll look to you for where do I fit in? Well, what's my place? And I don't think it's a big mystery that as society continues to lose father figures and kids are forced to pretty much raise themselves, just the big impact it's having on the society. And in the same way as men establish a boy's sense of identity, I mean, obviously, I hope this goes without saying, women establish a girl's sense of identity. There's a place in a girl's life that you as a father will never fill. You will establish a sense of security. You will, both parents are essential. I'm not saying anything like that, but a single mom is going to have a harder time with a son because she can't give him that identity. He will always be looking. And if you bring a guy in that's not a good guy, that's not really invested in the child, that's gonna affect the situation, and it's gonna affect how he responds and how he learns and how he unlearns and all these different things. It's a very complicated issue. Moral of the story being, it's best. Well, I don't want to get into that too much because that's not really what we're talking about. But kids need a secure environment. Let's just end it. Let's just cut it off there. Next thing I wanted to mention, it is natural for kids to pull back and try to discover who they are. That's a natural process. That's a good thing. See, what happens is when they're babies, they're completely dependent on you. As they're toddlers, they're testing their limits. They're not really sure about a lot of things. They kind of want to do things their own way, and they know what you said. They just want to do their own thing. But reasoning hasn't developed yet. And then they go into their teenage years is a good example of what I'm talking about here. And they don't know who they are, where they fit in. So they try to kind of pull back. They try to become independent. They try to do the opposite, right? Even sometimes to the point of shooting themselves in the foot. And once again, remember that kids do not develop their sense of um, reasoning until into their 20s. So you really can't. You don't treat them like they're adults. Don't that kind of stuff. Just be patient with them. Sometimes we chew out our kids like, oh, you should know better. And it's like, you're doing the same thing and you're 30 and you expect them to do it. Doesn't fit. So you have to remember to talk to your kids where they are in their development, not where you want them to be, not where you wish they could be, but where they actually are. um, well, there's more I could say there, but I think you get the main point there. I'm trying to keep things simple because there's just so much more that could be said about everything that I'm mentioning today. So if it sounds like some things are just too short, I'm limited that way. Um, so don't be surprised as they pull back. But here's the thing: don't give responsi- don't give responsibility without accountability. Okay, like here's a good example. A lot of times people will give their kids, or even toddlers, even, phones. Well, phones have to be earned. And then you shouldn't just step back and, oh, I trust my kids. That's a stupid thing to do. I mean, trust has to be earned. They have to establish that. And Proverbs tells us like this: if you give a person, just give somebody a bunch of wealth, a bunch of stuff, okay, it's going to dwindle because, well, they didn't earn it. But it says that if somebody works for something day after day, it will increase. Their wealth will increase. Their things will increase. Why? Because they learned the value. It's important that you don't try to save your kids all the lessons, save them from every failure, provide for them everything. That doesn't do anything. I know that sounds like, oh, if you really love them, you'll do this, but no. It's like, for instance, um, when you first get your baby, you have to, every single time that they cry, you have to check them. Food, uh, did they poop their diaper? That you go down this list. But as they start getting closer to a year old, you well, before that, but by a year old, there's this process. You have to kind of wean them off of you. You can't always come every single time that they cry about everything. And that sounds like, oh, you're being heartless. Well, no, this is actually science. See, what happens is the child will develop an unhealthy dependence. Oh my goodness! Sorry, I smacked my thing. That scared me. The child will develop an unhealthy dependence, and with that, come on, the holder isn't working very good. I'll just do that. Okay. The child will develop an unhealthy dependence where where it'll stunt their maturity. They won't be able to comfort themselves. They won't be able. And why is that important? Well, let's imagine this, okay? A 15-year-old boy who's never given the opportunity to learn and calm himself down because of over dominating, well-meaning parents who always feel like they have to, intercede and protect him from everything. Well, then once again, he doesn't know how to calm himself down, and he's starting to leave the childhood phase and entering into more of the adult phase. He still doesn't know how to handle these feelings, how to work through a problem. He's not okay. He has a false sense of how the world is going to work. He's completely dependent on you, and this oftentimes causes a lot of rebellion because they don't know who they are and they're trying to discover who they are, but you're constantly micromanaging everything, over dominating, overbearing. And I love them, I just can't. If you really love them, you have to let them make mistakes, let them learn. Now, I'm not saying put them in dangerous situations, but sometimes our compassion hurts our children, and that's a hard thing to learn, but um, it's very important to learn that. So it's natural for them to pull back and to try to discover who they are. That's a completely natural process. Um, you have to do it in stages, though. So sometimes there'll be kind of like a tug of war, and you still have to establish that you're the authority, you're the parent, but still establishing that idea of giving them little freedoms as earned. Um, this should start way back when they're toddlers. Um, well, you have to dress like I say. Well, no, give your toddler a little bit of freedom. I'm not saying give them free reign, but give them a little bit of freedom. Let them pick out maybe a costume. Maybe you pick out two costumes and say, which outfit do you want to wear today? And you give them the choice. Makes them feel like, oh, I'm a person. I have self-worth. Those kinds of things. Well, as they get older, you give them more and more, choices to make, bigger choices, so that by the time that they're 15, hopefully they'll be picking out their own clothes and you know taking care of things, maybe obviously doing with chores, but you should probably start with chores way back when they're toddlers. And you might say, how could you make a toddler do chores? Well, the world doesn't revolve around them. You know what I mean? Get them into the idea of having a place. Don't pay them for doing chores. Let them know that this is something that we contribute into the family. You're a part of this family. You're not the center of our world, you're a part of our world. There's a big difference there. And a lot of times we try and save our kids these hard lessons, but they're very important lessons. So actually more of stunt their growth than anything. So it's very important that you do this in stages. Don't give too much too quickly, but still expect for a pulling away. And that's just going to happen. They change. Kids don't stay kids for forever. They eventually become adults. And part of that's good. You probably don't want your son telling you about having sex with his wife or something. It's like, this is not a conversation for our father. You know what I mean? Like, this is just. But anyways, um, kids most often will learn by mistakes and failures. That's one of the biggest things. What we try and do is we try to teach them everything by words. So we go on these long rants. That doesn't really teach. Kids learn by mistakes, they learn by experience, by failures. They learn by watching you. This is a big thing. You can't steal those experiences from them. That's the primary way of that they're going to learn. So the trick is to be with them as they try to keep them from killing themselves, but at the same time allowing them some freedom to do it the wrong way. Instruct them. I talked about this in the last video. I do, you watch. I do, you help. Okay, now you do and I help. Now, okay, now you do and I watch. See, walking them through the process. What are you trying to stand? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to give them everything you never had? Are you trying to make them feel loved and comforted throughout the rosiness of life? Are you trying to make them think that the world isn't hard? Are you trying to what's your purpose? Are you trying to run their life? Are you trying to be in charge and establish authority? Or are you trying to help them to be productive members of society, responsible, accountable, mature? See, sometimes we think that we're doing our kids favors and we're not. Keeping them from hard lessons isn't helping them. It's helping you keep them in a state of just immaturity. And these are kind of important things to learn. So be with them as they try, but remember that the kids learn often by mistakes and failures. I was kind of the exception to the rule. I was the youngest of five, and I kind of just watched my older siblings, and I was like, yeah, that's a stupid thing to do. See what I mean? But my older siblings, they didn't do that. They had to experiment the things. This is the line, so they had to cross it. They always got themselves into a bunch of trouble, and whatever. That was their thing. You know what I mean? And for me, I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a great idea. And so, long story short, here, don't try and save your child from a mistake and failure when it's something that is a learning opportunity. If it's something where they're in danger or if it's a long-term consequence, maybe, step in is necessary, but still there should be some balance in this. Um, so a good example, okay? Uh, well, no, this video is already going a little bit too long. We'll just go ahead and call it quits there. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of what I'm talking about, and I can always do more videos in the future to explain those kinds of things. So I hope that this helps, and okay, see you guys.